Hi, did you know that having a well attended funeral is a subject of great concern in Taiwan? Some families hire strippers and host dances and set out feasts to entice people to attend. I mean, there's strippers there. Why would you not go? I mean, have a good time and maybe watch a dead person show. I mean, why not? I'd go. So, welcome to an episode of Never Mind a Broadcast, and I'm your host, Izzy Smop. So this week we did an interview with Ben from the band The Boy Detective, which they're a hardcore ska punk band in Michigan, and I had a great time talking to him. He works in the funeral industry, and he talks about that, and he goes into great details about his band and the funeral industry, and it's so interesting to talk to. And they have great music, The Boy Detective. So I want to play this song first and then play the interview. So I hope I pronounce everything correctly. So the song is called Some Dracanar Wearing Duster with a Boner. I hope I said it right. And the song is by The Boy Detective, and I'll interview Ben right after. Brought out.
The most important thing to remember is that this is your time. Make the best use of it. Do not dwell on intruding thoughts. Do not think about things that have to be done, things you should have done. Put them all aside for about 20 minutes. All cares and worries aside. This is your time.
When I met you, I was 7 years into a 5-year bad luck streak. I was looking like an idiot, and you were the most beautiful girl that I'd ever seen. Throw caution to the wind, if myself was the worst thing that could have been. 'Cause even if you laughed at me, I spent the rest of my days remembering your smile. There are things in my life I'll never understand, and number one is how you ever gave me a chance, and number two is freshman economics. It's the only class I ever got less than a B in. It's why people vote against their best interests. It's what my kids like about YouTube is. Go back to number one, 'cause seriously, it's not just your looks, you're just so much smarter than me too. Maybe it's my confidence.
Yes, absolutely. My name, and I am in the ska punk band, The Boy Detective.
Dude, that song that I got, that cover, I cannot stop playing it. I absolutely love it. So much.
Jumping.
Yeah, so how did you guys get about, recording that cover? When did the idea go around about that one?
So if you actually look through our catalog, we also have an album labeled Scalarity, off of a spinoff of Clarity of Jimmy Eat World. Me and my lead guitarist, or I guess only guitarist really in my band, we have been writing music for over 15 years, 20 years together. And we were in other bands and other side projects, but we started The Boy Detective as only a recording process at first. We really wanted to write some pop punk, but with horns, because we both fell in love. I started out as just a regular punk rock fan, so like Ramones, Clash, Sex Pistols, that was me. And then my guitarist came more from the hardcore punk scene, so he was more into like the Kid Dynamites and the Painted Black, This Is Hell, all that kind of stuff. On top of also we would meet in the middle with our love for pop punk, of course, like Green Day, Blink-182, New Found Glory, et cetera. But I stemmed from that old school 4/4 punk. He stemmed from the more hardcore stuff. And what happened was when we met, we kind of started appreciating each other's styles and then kind of correlating that into our own style. But we both are big fans of old like pop 90s, early 2000s. Like that was our generation, our genre of music that we really fell in love with. So we did Scolarity first, which was like, I don't know, 12 tracks or 13 tracks of our 13 of our favorite tracks from the late 90s, early 2000s, pop punk scene, punk, emo, whatever you want to call it, scene that we really liked. And we put some ska into them. And then what happened was is eventually we were like, hey, let's see if we could even find a drummer. And then we got a drummer. And then it was like, hey, let's see if we can get horns. And then all of a sudden we had 2 horns. And then we were like, oh, I guess we can actually play live now. So even though officially the Boy Detective formed in like 2016, 2017, we really didn't get the actual band together until COVID, of course. So we had a 2-year breather writing stuff. And then so we came out in 2022 with Band from the Bathtub, which is our first album as an actual band together. We had the 2 albums, Scolarity, and then we also had Dorcas Malorcas, which was just him and I that did everything on it. But then we actually had a band in Band from the Bathtub, and then our newest release was Art Theft. But going back to your question, Jumpin', we always loved Destiny. I mean, who doesn't love Destiny's Child, right? I mean, even like the
Exactly.
people are like, I have to admit, Beyonce, she just has those pipes, man. So we decided, hey, that would be really fun. Well, and not to mention too, when you go to a punk show and they play a cover, it either really hits or it doesn't. And a lot of punk bands try to pick like more obscure stuff, and that's wonderful. It's amazing. But if you want the crowd to like sing with you and chant with you, you got to pick a song that like they can't not sing with you. So we're like, no, that's the perfect thing.
Smart.
We love it. People love it. Like,
smart.
And we did it. And then what was awesome about that was we just played a show at that time with a punk band from Detroit called Killing Pixies. They're wonderful. They're awesome. Very LGBT plus community band. And so we got to play with them, and we fell in love with how they did it. And I just was like, hey, Pixie, who's the lead singer, I'm like, hey, would you be interested in doing the vocals for this? And if you actually listen to the song, I would say I'm actually singing what a girl should be singing, and she's singing what a guy should be actually singing. We like not only did the song, but we like flipped it because we thought that would be more awesome to do. So yeah, so that she did it, she stayed up, we got to do it, and it was man, it turned out wonderful. We actually did that recording ourselves. We did that one ourselves. Like I said, my guitarist and my drummer at the time were really big into recording, so they took care of that one. But Art Theft was produced and mastered by our good friend Steve Worcester out of Toledo, who also has he's done stuff for Citizen and Equipment and other bands like that. So, but yeah, the Jumpin' was a lot of fun. And then what we found is, of course, especially when you sing into the crowds, the men try at first not to sing it with you, and the women are like, oh yeah, let's do this, let's get rowdy. Boy Detective. And what we love about the Boy Detective is we're really special when it comes live. Our songs are great. Don't get me wrong. Listen to Spotify, check them out on all streaming platforms, whatever, Bandcamp, whatever you're into. But you got to come and see actually the Boy Detective, because we are a hoot and a holler. In fact, we just played last night our Art Theft release show with Jay Navarro and the Traitors, Shitty Neighbors, Strange Generation. Killing Pixies were supposed to play, but one of their members got COVID, so COVID wins again, right? From, the Traitors, but obviously from, if people don't know, Suicide Machines, which is being a Michigan kid. I remember literally inline skating in my funeral home parking lot, listening to Definition by Destruction on an anti-skip CD player, because I was so excited to be able to rollerblade and not the CD skip every 2 seconds, right? I'm gonna age myself a little bit there. So I was doing some cool while Break the Glass was blaring in my ears. Coming from I'm from, just a little bit about me, I'm from a very conservative town. So, there's not many of us punk rockers in this area in Ida, Michigan, which is very farm community-based, so it's all country out here, sadly. So, and not only that, but I'm a funeral director, but I'm also like a fourth generation funeral director. Like my dad's dad, his dad all ran this funeral home, helping run it. So yeah, so it's even more so like I'm surrounded by death by day, ska by night, I guess is what you would say. I know you got the question, Izzy, so I could talk for ages. So you go ahead.
No, I'm good. I'm just sitting here in shock because you go from like the extreme like funeral and then ska, the most happiest thing. I'm like, whoa! Of course you need something to be, jumping around and be happy about. I mean, I'm glad that you have that outlet.
Well, and it's awesome too because we aren't your stereotypical ska band and we're your stereotypical punk band. We somehow know how to mix a bunch of genres, which I'm going to give my guitarist Nick Good a lot of props. He basically does most of the writing. He's brilliant when it comes to his lyrics. He's brilliant when it comes to his song titles. I don't know if you've come across those yet, Izzy, but some of our song titles are very interesting. And then he also basically sets the tone for the song. So he'll come to us with the songs, and then we add our flares into it. So like I always look at it like Nick Good is like the mastermind, and I'm just like the salesman that goes door to door. I just have a good way of packaging it for him. And I'm a pretty wild front man, so it's like you get the best of both worlds. But I have awesome. Our brass section is very talented. In fact, they play with like the Ann Arbor jazz quartets and stuff. They're really really brilliant when it comes to their horns. Our bassist kind of came out of nowhere. Our good friend band Candor at the time, he filled in for us and he's filled up because I first started as bassist and singer, and then I realized I can't really do as much hooting and hollering and jumping and dancing if I got a bass strapped to me, this awkward long thing. So we decided to put me at lead singer. But yeah, and then we got another horn player, Rhiannon. She's wonderful. So Seth and Jaredon are our trumpet and sax, but then we also got a Barry sax. Her name is Rhiannon. She started out as a fan and just kind of like, she was like, hey, I can play sax. We're like, hey, why don't you play sax with us? And it's it's wonderful. I wish there was more, and it's getting that way. Like I see more women in the punk scene, and I absolutely think it's wonderful. Because this whole gentleman's club needs to die out, right? There's so much. Go ahead.
We'll see more women getting involved too. It's cool. I love it.
Well, I love the mixture, right? I mean, we need everything, and so it's just wonderful to have her in, and it's awesome to have that like woman's perspective, and she's absolutely great. And then our drummer Zach, he took over about 6 months ago, and he's been doing absolutely wonderful. So we have a really good group, of course, because there's ska influences. We all are very goofballs, but when it comes to like the funeral home side, which I find is interesting, our lyrics are very existential. So as much as it is, ska tends to be a happier sounding thing. Stuff we're singing about is a lot of the times like one of our infamous lines is we're all fucking doomed and we're wasting our time. Like that's a very existential first ska band I'm thinking about. It's funny because one of our first shows we ended up playing in a squat in Detroit, and just playing, and there's maybe 20 people in this place and they're doing whatever. Like literally there's a sign that says if you're going to do drugs, do it upstairs in a safe environment. And that's just like for me coming from the country, like this is interesting. And I remember like we're playing to this horrible PA system, and James Navarro just walks in, just watching the local talent, and I'm like, oh my god, like this guy's a king. Like why am I playing for him in this crappy place, this crappy, But I give him so much props. Like that's what I love about the true punks. And Izzy, I know you can vouch for this. Like they care about the scene, they care about their community. Like they were raised on the DIY. Even more so than we pretend to be nowadays. You know what I mean? Like they're the way that they ran shows and got themselves developed was all community based within their, you know, the hardcore scene or the punk scene or whatever. And it's like, you know, now with streaming systems and with Facebooks and Instagrams and all of that, it's so much easier to get shows. It's so much easier to get your music promoted and out there. You know, they had to do it door to door, you know. And so it makes my heart so much big that like Jay Navarro, who has been playing music for whatever 30, 40 years now, and has been in these extremely talented, successful bands, is going to a random local show, just randomly showing up. And it was well that segues into what I was going to say, because he heard that line, because we chant it, we sing it in our song Scabies. I'm not going to give you the full title. I don't remember it most of the time. I think it's I got Scabies once, so that's pretty punk rock, I think is what the title is. But it's the last song on Band, and at the end we literally chant, "We're all fucking doomed to a wasting our time." And he remembered that. And I remember him coming up to me at the end. He's like, "Hey, I just want you to know, I told the machines I like what you guys were singing, that chant. That's so cool." So when we did our CD release, I added that to the set list, and I asked him, I was like, "I know, like, take my shot. Like, would you come up and chant, 'We're all fucking doomed and we're wasting our time' with us?" And he was like, "Yeah." And I was like, to see like that, like, he could have easily said no or buzz off. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, we decided to tape our show last night. So eventually you guys will all see Jay Navarro and me basically kissing a mic, with our foreheads together, screaming, "You're all fucking doomed, you're wasting your time." They rule. Like, Jay Navarro and the Traitors, like, that was like the first big band, you know, because they're on Bad Time Records, to like keep having us play their shows. We got to play with I don't know if you've heard of them, Escape the Zoo. Days and Days is like their original like big thing. But yeah, so we got to play with them. So like we just kind of came out of nowhere, and like we're doing some things, and like Art Theft is really taken off I got to be honest, and this is something there is nothing more welcoming I have found than the ska punk scene. Like, those diehards will do anything to help a local ska punk band get on shows or get them promoted. Like, we have gotten nothing but like very much help from the ska punk scene in Michigan. Because it's like we play and they're like, "Where have you been all these years?" We're like, "Well, I mean, in theory, we only started this 2 years ago. We've been playing music for 30. I actually started with my brothers in a horror punk band like Misfits. We were called Spaghetti Zombies, and that's what I did for like 10 years, and I loved it. Very like Jerry Only, Danzig type punk rock. It was wonderful. It was absolutely awesome. But then I started getting into this, and I never assumed I would ever be in a ska band, ever. Like, not that I'm against it. I love it. I've always did. I always loved Less Than Jake and Suicide Machines and Catch-22 and Streetlight Manifesto. But like, I was always considered myself like, no, I'm a Ramones, Clash. Give me the easy stuff. I just want to chant. I want to whoa all night long. You know, I want to oi and whoa all night long, you know. And then it was like, oh, now I'm pick it up, you know, and all that kind of stuff.
Pick it up.
But yeah, and you know what? And I will say this: like, there is nothing better than a skank pit. Like, I grew up with the hardcore slamming and bashing, and I also grew up with the punk, which is, you know, the circle pits or whatever. But man, like, a skank pit is something else. And I got to see a couple of those, and I'm like, man, like, we're pretty cool when people start skank pitting. Like, you know what I mean? Because it died. Like, that's the sad part about ska. Like, regardless of the waves, if you know, because we could get into that, Izzy, and I know you know enough probably about the waves and all that jazz, but like, the third gen with the late 90s, like, everybody said, like, it kind of ruined the ska scene because it was so commercialized that people it wasn't cool to be in a ska band in the early 2000s. So especially those bands, you know, the Suicide Machines, Big D and the Kids Table, like all the ones that kept going, Less Than Jake, like Real Big Fish, I give them credit because I'm sure there were some pretty bad years. And then, like, all of a sudden, COVID hits and ska becomes this huge thing again. Like, it's really getting big again. with like Catbite and Kill Lincoln and all the Bad Time Wrecks, and you got all these, you got Suicide Machines re-evolving, and Jay Navarro and the Traders. You got all these like, awesome bands. And I could go on all day, Bite Me Bambies and the Half-Past Twos. If I'm missing anybody out there that's listening to this, ska bands, I know you. I don't have time to release all your names. But it's really cool. And I got to say, is you're doing a wonderful job like promoting the punk scene. So I really appreciate you, and I'm humbled and honored to be on your show, because like I love these conversations. I love these conversations, especially like when you find out things about bands that you're like, I liked them before I knew that they had this weird story, and now I love them even more.
Well, thank you. I mean, I do my best, and I love punk, but I also love ska as well, and and I love. And I didn't even know like when you sent me that song, I was like, this is amazing. And I wanted to check out more songs. And it's just like, it just evolved. And I'm like, I'm hoping you guys will tour one day and I just get to see you.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's the plan. That's the plan. The problem with us, and it's in our lyrics a lot of us are married, and a lot of us have children, and a lot of us have very strange jobs, like myself included, where like I'm a local town funeral director, so Dad and I literally are working 24/7 because Dad does not have a 9 to 4. I'm honored to be in this community because they have so much trust in Dad and I, but with that trust, like Spider-Man, right? With that trust comes responsibility. It's like that whole thing where people expect you to always be around. So like that makes it very tough if I want to tour, with kids in a funeral home. In a local community that really wants Dad and I to be around for everything. So I've been doing really well with playing a lot of shows, but right now it's really hard to get out of that like Detroit, Ohio, Illinois like area, because most of us are like, we're at the bottom of Michigan. Like I'm 20 minutes from the border of Ohio. So like we do a lot. We can do like Ohio. We play a lot in Toledo. We play a lot in Detroit. And we play a lot in Ann Arbor. Like that's our spots right now. But we've played Grand Rapids. We've played Alpena. We've played down further in Ohio and all that. So I mean we're getting there. But it's like one of those things too where it's like, man, gas prices. And I hate to be like that guy, but it's hard. It's hard to get. And here's the other thing, Izzy. There's 7 of us. So yeah, trying to get like, even when I was in a 3-piece band or 4-piece band, like getting 4 people schedules with jobs and lights and things, like, God, I wish we would have been here at 19 when I didn't have the funeral home to take and the kids and all that, you know what I mean? Where I could go for months, and get the start, but we don't have that. So we kind of have to use friendships and networking, and I think we're doing pretty good for what we've been able to do and how long we've been able to do it. But I know a lot of that has to do with the people that are doing the work, which is like you, which is like the bands that were nice enough to let us play, not knowing who we were or what we were going to sound like. So it's the punk community is wonderful, and it's so nurturing, but it's, it comes across, from the outside looking in, people just think it's these bunch of dicks, that just like don't care about each other and don't care about the scene. And it's like, no, I find that the actual true punks extremely care about the scene. And because they got their name on it, right? They put years into this. So it's like, I don't want crappy things coming up. I want my legacy to start being built in other bands, so I don't know. It's very interesting. It's very interesting to be in, and we're lucky enough that our songs have hip hop in them. Our songs have hardcore breakdowns. Our songs have pop punk, very melodic, high choruses. So like we could fit in with a punk band, we could fit in with a ska band, we could fit in with a hardcore band and a hardcore show. Like that helps too, that you're not like pigeon-toed or stereotyped into one specific genre. Because even though, like, see, that's the problem. You have one horn, and you're automatically a ska or reggae band. You know what I mean? Like you can't get away from it. Like that's what people see. They just assume like, oh, you have a horn, okay, you're a ska band. It's like, well, I don't play one upbeat. of my one-up truck. But we have had we've had a lot of fun in this community, and me being lucky enough to be able to play music for 20 plus years now, it's amazing. And for me, especially with a job where it's very stressful, very high anxiety, and I'm dealing with grieving families all the time and seeing things that most people don't see or deal with, like being able to jump around, scream my lungs out, and have people actually enjoy it, because that's another thing too that's been really interesting for me and my guitarist, my really close friend Nick, is that we've had a lot of talks about like being in a band finally where people actually want to come out and see your band and don't feel obligated to come out and it's sad because we wrote some really good music, and I think The Boy Detective is our opus. I think we really hit our stride, and I think it's just the other musicians that are part of it too, and the community and the timing and all that. But I will say though, it's like it's weird to have, like I said, people drive an hour, 2 hours to see you play. Where like it used to be, you'd have your friends, your family, like, yeah, I guess I'll go see cousin so-and-so play tonight, or I guess that one guy in our high school is having a show, so we got nothing else going on, so we're going to head out there. It is, but it's also like, it's funny because it's also like goes against, like, no, we don't want to become too big, or we don't want to, like, the dreaded, like, because you're in the punk scene, right, and you have this punk ethos, it's like, I don't want to sell out, or I don't want to do something, like I don't want to not play. I never don't want to not play like the one show that, even though I know there's only going to be 10 people there, you know what I mean? Like, and that's the struggle too, because we had to get ourselves on shows. Now we're getting asked to play a bunch of shows, which is wonderful, but it's also like you have to pick and choose. So like I'm starting to understand in a very small vacuum, like obviously we're not a big band, we're not a touring band, we are not there yet by any means, form, or shape, but I can understand like why big bands can't just play every show, right? They can't be in 8 places at once, and they can't, they have to play certain shows that are appropriate to them. But it's like that's really against my, like, hey, you want us to play a show, or we got a show, we're gonna play it. It doesn't matter who's gonna be there, how much money you're gonna make at the end of the night. So that's interesting, being adulting, right, at that point, being a business person in a band compared to just a traveling artist, I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I definitely think too, like, it's tough because a lot of times with shows, because like you don't want to be that band that goes. I mean, sometimes you're gonna have to be offered shows and can't do them all. Sometimes you have to kind of like. You kind of have to pick and choose, like, oh no, which one's going to be, because it depends on where you play, because like in Connecticut, it's a small place, so you don't want to be caught playing in the same city too often, because then you're basically oversaturated. So you kind of have to like spread around and kind of move around instead of being in one area, So it's just like, so I understand. So you just got to pick and choose and see what's right for you guys.
Well, it's tricky too, because then you feel bad when you decline a show, right? And then it always happens that the same band that invites you and you had to decline, right? And you're like, next time we will be there. They pick the next time on the worst date. So then you're in this like pickle.
Sorry.
Where you're like, we almost have to do the show, but we can't do the show. So you're like, every time you say no, it like makes you seem like, and hindsight's 20/20, right? They get it. Like there's 7 of us, but also like in your mind, you're playing this like trick on yourself where it's like, they probably think we're the worst people ever. Like, oh, they're too cool.
Oh no. Oh no, I doubt it. Yeah, but no, they won't think. And plus you have a very important job too, so.
Yeah, but like that's interesting too, because it's like people will say like, oh, have you been really busy at your job? And I'm like, I don't know how to answer that question. It's like people are suffering, they're grieving. And then like, but if I say no, like that's not, like that, it's so weird. Like when people ask like the small talk, what I do, because funeral directors, and I nod my head to any funeral directors, anybody in the death profession out there that's listening to this, because like that's another reason why the podcast I sent you. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to it, but our society does not do well. America specifically does not do well with talking about death or dealing with death.
No.
Especially, and add another caveat to our conversation. Suicide is extremely prevalent in musicians and artists, and I love that I can be a channel for some of those people. Like I'm a part of 6 Feet Over, which is a nonprofit that helps families with suicide and suicidality, helping individuals who are struggling go through that and help process that and all that. It's absolutely wonderful to be not only a funeral director but also be on a board that's paying and helping people pay for funerals, because there's a lot that goes into suicide, and we don't have to talk about that. It's a whole other conversation. But I know a lot of musicians who have died by suicide, and I'm lucky enough to have education and knowledge to help other artists, but also when you first meet me, you're like, oh, he's in a ska band, he's just a goofball, right? Like, of course, right? It just goes with the territory, and some of that's true, but also like, we're these people that you think like are goofballs are also like extremely intelligent in their own way, So it's wonderful to have that networking system to not only play music to make people happy and make myself happy, because that's the other thing too, right? It's an outlet for me. It's an outlet for me to get rid of my grief. Because little story about me, I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober now for 2.5 years. And so,
that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. The Boy Detective has actually helped out a ton with that, because it keeps my mind off other things, right? It stops the hamster wheel a lot of the time from continual. So that's wonderful. So like I know that there's a lot of responsibility to being in a band, not only to your band itself, but to yourself as a musician and the community, the fans, right? Because that's at the end of the day, it really is the fans. People say that as like a cop out all the time. Like it's you that keeps me going, but it's the truth. Like if people didn't listen and didn't care, it's hard to continue doing what you're doing. It makes it really easy when people care and want to be a part of it. So even more
exactly, so I agree.
The bands who are struggling, or the musicians that just haven't found the right people, or are writing music just to write music and try to help and aren't getting the notoriety that they deserve, like I tip my hat to you, because somebody out there is listening. But which, by the way, Izzy, I wanted to say I loved your tracks. I listened to your new tracks, and they're wonderful.
Thank you.
I think there's 3, and I think they're all wonderful. If I'm not mistaken, right? I went to the
Thank
right place, right?
Yeah.
I loved them. I can't remember the names of them, but the last one, track 3, I really liked.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about one person. It's basically a whole. And a lot of people hate it, but it's a unity. It's just unity. It's definitely a community as well. We have to all kind of like help each other in order to to be. That's just how you should be. Just helpful.
Well, it's an ecosystem. Really, it is. And like,
yeah.
I think we, especially us with the punk ethos, we need to make this world a better place. So whether that be fighting against the man or...
No, I definitely agree with you so much, because even though, if we, we all have our own bands and our own problems and all stuff, but in the end, like, we're all kind of like in this, we're all just people just dealing with stuff that we need to talk about. And it's with the whole punk involved too, and the punk ethos and DIY, it's just like we all need to like kind of stick together and not be so separated,
Oh, absolutely. And more importantly, help each other out, like actually help the underdogs, right? Because that's the other thing too. Like, I love being a part of the underdogs. I love being in a musical field, we'll say. That's silly to put a term on on punks, right? That's against the ethos. But it's like on our resumes to help and to promote and to be there for the underdog and to support the ones that are getting beaten down. And so it's wonderful. I love this community. I love the opportunity. I'm thankful to have a soapbox to be able to communicate and to spread energy, really, too. Like if one of our songs or one of our shows helps somebody's day be 2% better, you know what I mean? Like that's what it is. It's not about the money. It's not, and I know that sounds like a cop out. It's not about the money. I know, like, I'm a realist. I know you need money to do things and to tour and to do that, but it's not about that. It's about the smiles. It's about the dancers. Like for us, it's about people just being able to, like, even sway, get some of that tension from their day out. And right now, especially in this post-COVID, high stress, high anxiety, high fear, high everything right now, hatred, prejudice, racism. You'd think by now, like, we would have figured that out and been better about it. And I do find that, like, especially the young generation are really, really fighting that better than even our generation did. And our generation did a good job, I really do think, comparably. But man, it's still like it's gross how much racism and prejudice we still deal with. A band that's willing to come out and play for anybody, especially all ages shows, and getting to see, a 5-year-old skank next to you, and you're like, man, I wish I would have been 5 years old and my parents. These, like, man, like, because that's what I think is the best legacy for bands, to be honest. I think if you have a band start because of watching you or hearing your songs, that's the legacy right there.
Absolutely, I agree, 1,000%.
Oh, so absolutely. So first, The Boy Detective, you can check us out on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple, whatever you're into, Bandcamp if you don't have any of those. So check The Boy Detective out. We just released Art Theft on January 1st, 7 tracks. They're really good. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in it. So obviously, I have some bias, but they're really good. They turned out really well, and I got to give my props to Steve for recording that for us in Toledo. Also, we will be releasing some new songs we're going to be recording, but we don't know when or how. I mean, obviously, we're kind of still on the train of Art Theft being only released a couple weeks ago. But keep checked in on that. If you're dealing with any death anxiety or crisis, I would like to promote my podcast, Let's Talk About Death, with Benny and Dr. Nick, who is my twin. He's a psychologist that specializes in grief and loss. I'm a funeral professional, and we talk about all taboos that have to do with death and dying. Other than that, honestly, big thing is, like, keep listening to Izzy, because she's going out there. She's doing great things, helping this community. Go out. You know what? Do me a favor, everybody who's listening to this. Go out to local shows, and don't just say, oh, yeah, I went to one, that's enough. Like, actually go out to local shows, promote local music, actually come for the opening bands. That's another big thing that I would challenge you to do.
Yeah.
Instead of just coming at the end to see the last band that you came. Like, you would be surprised how many possible Boy Detectives bands are out there playing their first show and they're opening, and you could be the one that helps them not only get maturity, but helps them believe in their dreams. So, Izzy, that's all I got. I appreciate you listening to Art Theft, Boy Detective.
And thank you for everything. And I got to listen to your podcast, too. So thanks again. We'll talk soon.